Um,
Thank you.
all right, Demetrius, you
So,
want to start? You want to start recording?
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Tonight we have a really special guest, the Grand Master of
Hold
the
on.
Cabal himself, Marcus McCarthy. Welcome.
No, hold on 1 second. I just I have to get one thing out of the way before we start here. And I had a way
Oh,
better introduction. Greetings from the night side. This is the Legion of Lilith. We bring you occulted and metaphysical information, highlighting our honored guests. While taking a look at their practices and traditions. We favor the night side, but are not limited to any dogmatic agenda or paradigm. That being said, myself, Demetrius, and any of our guests will not be held responsible for any misinterpretation of any information presented. It is the responsibility of the listener to understand what they are listening to. We bring this information to you in the name of education. So without further ado, from the temple of Marjarai and the towers that it represents in strength, the ascended Grandmaster himself, Marcus McClarity. Thanks for coming on, Marcus. How you feeling tonight, beloved?
feeling outstanding. Thank you both for having me in this interview as well. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
So Marcus, before we start talking about gods and spirits and whatnot, I don't think the audience fathoms just who is manifesting before them or just who is coming through their sound speakers. Can you start a little bit? Can you go back in chronological order? You don't have to go back to childhood, but can you just let them know of the crucibles that you've went through, the trials and hardships that have been brought upon you by the lords and ladies of the Majorai to strengthen you, but the angels as well have tried to stop you at every turn. Can you please give the audience a rundown on just what happened to you, how you got into this path?
Oh, absolutely. I've been doing this. I came to this path early 2011, 2012. I was very young, and I was seeking relief in a way that the Judeo Christian pantheons and their right hand path magicians couldn't bring me to that point. And I have gone through, I have been paralyzed due to chronic illnesses. I've had various, heart attacks, strokes, and all types of things before. And I was able to come to the Merzeriah and Cabal and begin to learn, their secrets. I had to work my way up through great trial and tribulations, through, just absolute pain. It was agony. I had to endure what is essentially my own personal hell through Lord Cernobog. And there's a reason. I know I had made a post about this before, but the reason we address Cernobog instead of the name of Chernobog, it's the aspect we have contacted in the Mejara and Cabal. It is his true self and not the egregoric rendition of what he is from Slavic mythology. He is in his true primordial archdemonic self when we call him, rather than an egregoric deity spawned of fear. Those are known as, imposter spirits from the human collective consciousness that most Western magicians throughout their lifetimes never truly see through. But through this, we're able to contact his true self, without all the fear mongering dogma, thought constructs that have been associated with his true self. But yeah, back to what I was talking about. Cinerock had me endure my own literal personal hell. As I climbed to the top, I had to prove myself to, not only the previous AGM, as well as the hidden elders. Those who were above me. but I had to learn all forms of, I would say, forbidden magics that will get you hunted down in this place, which, Cernobog will call it. He has called it Tartarus, the prison of the gods. And he states that humanity doesn't truly know its true origins. He states that if they did, they would understand what they're here to learn, what they truly are. This is why you've heard me in the past speak about affinity aspects. And each of us, through the towers, we learn to contact different aspects of ourselves, because humans too are chained down. You will hear in certain, even, I would say, even throughout the JCI biblical perspective, there you will hear about, so-called Allah and certain, I would say, deities such as the Shaitan being held down like by chains. Humanity has this very same thing the moment they step into any form of spirituality. They begin to be bound. This place is designed to make you forget what you are. And Cernobog had told me in the past, he said, this world is as tangible as a lucid dream. He was like, all you have to do is wake up. And when you come to learn the machinations of the celestial bureaucracy, he states that what humanity is, we are agents of chaos. We are against structure. And when you hear people, when people hear things like this come from us, they would call us edge lords or some stupid shit like that. But you he states that humanity is the physical representation, the physical manifestation of nature. He was like, nature is chaos, nature is cruel. And he was like, humanity embodies nature, but to call yourself humans is absolutely wrong. He was like, he was like, what we're here to do is to pull off the mask and show you what's underneath. He was like, and this is what we've done with you. He was like, you thought you were helpless. He was like, you were born sick, but you're a warrior, and you know what you are. He had me go through there were certain magical practices in the past that I absolutely detested. They will break you of this mundane approach to how you see spirituality, how you see certain things like vampirism or blood magics. I was able to etch vampiric runes and necromancy into my organs down to my very atoms to recover spinal injuries, paralysis, brain damage, you know, just from manipulating these things. And if you've seen like on the Cabal channel, you will see me hooked up to machines in the Forged in Sorcery
Yes,
series.
that's what I was referring to when I was giving people a teaser of this interview. You
Yeah,
are the only magician that I know of that is successfully body swapped. I don't think people can understand or fathom that. In the book, in the Primal Craft Grimoire, the Scorpion God, Belial's personal book, he gives gnosis on just how to do that. You do not know how difficult it is to fucking body swap, but you have successfully done it. So all respect due.
Congratulations. I actually watched your old video on the Cabal channel where you talk about defeating the heart failure with magic, and that's the reason I wanted to interview you in the first place. So, can you tell us about that entire experience? Because that's something majority of people consider impossible. I personally don't, but yeah.
they think what is impossible? Sorry, the wind was interfering.
So majority of people find your story difficult to believe, but I actually trust you because
He
from
has
my experience,
pictures.
that's what we do.
He has
Oh yeah.
pictures. He has photos of him in the hospital bed. Then you see I don't know what the spirit pot or whatever, but there's a lot of other stuff that went into it. Look, I believe you 100% without a doubt in my mind. I believe that you are the Lord in flesh, one of them. I believe that, and if people detract and say, "Oh, that's impossible, you can't do that,"
Oh
fuck
yeah,
them.
they
There's proof.
believe we have major league egos. Like even our detractors, you'll hear them speak about it and they will refer to it as delusions of grandeur, but Cernobog and various others have taught us to call on the God selves of others. Even now, I can see both of you for what you truly are. And there is something to that. I pay everyone their respects because one of my primary towers is the Tower of the Void. We exist in past, present, and future. I'm constantly viewing my own pain. I'm constantly viewing my own future. And when you say there's people who absolutely don't believe it, there are so many things that are of this world that I've seen that would make people change their tune, but it has to be kept secret for a very specific purpose. Most of humanity isn't ready for it. They're not ready to see the nitty gritty of how the darker underworld works. If I ask them how do dark web assassins operate, or drug trafficking or anything like that, they wouldn't know anything about it. They're not exposed to its world. I've been to Haiti and I've seen men raise the dead. I've seen men set fire to something, just by rubbing their atoms together energetically, you know. I've seen people transfigure themselves in very much in a way that I have, only, I can hide it better. But
I
there
can
is,
tell. Oh, sorry. Go
huh?
ahead.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
there is a, but if you go and look at the past videos of me throughout, you'll see the metamorphosis.
Yep.
You'll see certain things like when I came public and I wanted to start speaking, I came prepared. I came prepared for the world that I was entering in. I was learning from, some of the greatest practitioners of all time, many of which will never get on YouTube. Some of the most powerful people I've met will not go public because of the dangers of everything. And not only, did I have pictures of everything back then, I also, down my timeline, I had also put my personal medical records and everything like that. And just the sheer amount of anomalies that happen. There was a time when I was younger as well, when I was having certain things done, and all of a sudden, I would say a ritual that I had done, just a few days ago before, that was led by perhaps, it was Zazazel, Cernobog, and a few others on dominating my own existence. And there was such a metamorphosis that even today I'm seeing a lot of the work that I've done manifest in a way that still seems possible. Like working with these spirits, working with Cernobog, I literally want for nothing. There is this absolute fulfillment where I'm like, what's next? The hunger continues. And there is this I would say there is this desire, this need to raise others up to where we are. A lot of people will see it as, they will see our organization as either a cult or some, dumb, mundane shit like that. But I dealt with that same shit when we first came to the West, and we were in New Orleans at first and everything, and we were doing voodooism ceremonies and everything, and we would have some crazy racist and shit, driving by saying you're worshiping the devil, you're doing this, but you're in this position in the seat of power. You're always taking up a position to where you have a responsibility. Even as tower masters, there is a great responsibility to it, and there's a great power even in being a disciple. The current is spreading itself. You're becoming more of your true self. Everything changes. If you do you have you guys watched the what I explained, what happens, when you first perform the blood pact with Lord Cernobog as well.
Yep, I watched all the
Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically, I kind of need to talk about Chernobog a little bit more because
do that 1 second. Choose.
I can confirm that Chernobog you are talking about and Chernobog I am working with are the same being. Because there is one thing which you can definitely say about Chernobog, and that's that he is beyond anything. He is beyond any definition you can put upon him. And there is one thing which is said about him, and that he is the god of eternal adversity. So he will eternally kick your ass until you become what you need to become. And he personally has no problem in like obliterating the people he deems worthy of obliteration. Actually, in order to obtain his blessing, I had to kill two people who belong to the church hierarchy, and I actually succeeded. But it was a pain in the ass to do, because once you raise those beings, they are forever there. So what will happen is you can do whatever you want. And next thing you see is Chernobog rising up and the black horde with him coming and watching you. And he will do it until you pay attention, but more you ignore, some form of a sinister darkness will build up and it will traumatize you until you turn your attention to the Lord of the Blighted. Now, here is the thing. So technically, what I need to say is that the Blighted, as you call them, are known too in the Slavic tradition. The only difference is the names. So it is said that technically Chernobog rules the underworld, and he rules the eternal flames, which is technically the eternal alchemical furnace from which the gods rise. And he has like his companions in the shadows, and that's technically the reference to the Blighted. So they are all
he is their patriarch deity. He is their self-appointed leader. He keeps every tower in line, everyone who packs in line. He is the father patriarch of the Metamorphosis Cabal. So you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. And there is one thing I kind of need to point out. Now, this is just different perspective on him, but it's technically the same being. So he is known in the Slavic tradition also as the Black Blacksmith. Now, when I asked him what it means, he told me, I am forging the weapons of the gods, but I am also forging the gods themselves. And he is also the Lord of the Kings, which means that he keeps the gateways into the old realms, and he technically keeps the gateway to what Wallachians call the Zmeu or the dragon. So technically the dragon is the sublimation of all of the dark energy which ever existed. It's technically the source of creation. So he keeps the gateway to the source of creation himself. But the thing with him, from my personal experience, is that he technically rules the darkness in the purest form. I don't know how to explain it. So the only deity ever which came close to the darkness of Chernobog is Ahriman. he really embodies the darkness in the purest form. And he is technically the primordial god. He is much older than the concept of mythology itself. Like all of the myths attributed to him are simply superficial ways of explaining certain things he does. But in reality, he predates the categorization at all. So during my investigation into that Slavic pantheon, I first started conjuring the gods, you know, the basic gods like Peron, Velas, Svetovit, and others. But then I started figuring out, wait a minute, you have something which is known in Serbia as Draconian pantheon. And Draconian pantheon technically has the Draconian gods, aka the dragons. Then you have the Fae. Then you have Morana, which is also venerated spirit in Majoranian tradition. And then you have Chernobog, right? And Chernobog is known as Javo or the devil, but that's technically the same being. So the Draconian gods and the Fae and Chernobog predate the Slavic pantheon as we know it. So they were technically there before pantheon was even invented. And when the pantheon was obliterated by the Christian church, and when the gods were Christianized into saints, Chernobog and the primordial aspect of the pantheon came to the surface again. So there was a regression, if you can call it, of the Slavic pantheon to the more primordial stage. And that's the reason why the spirit from that tradition, just like the Loa in the Haitian Wodan, managed to preserve the primordial forms they had in the beginning, because they were technically undogmatized in the process of Christianization. Because, yeah. So the dogma was obliterated. And there is one thing I kind of need to say about him, which is that he technically, so I kind of need to talk with you about this, because you are the only guy who can tell me from different perspective what he is talking about. So I summoned the dude, and he tells me, look, I have a keys to the realm of the dragon. You have to summon that energy one time, and then you will get what's the point of all of this, right? So technically I summoned the Chernobog, I summoned the Zmeo. It comes. And then I ask the dragon what he wants, right? What's the agenda of the dragon? And he tells me, I want nothing. I am everything. And I already possess everything. But there is one thing you can do for me. That is to become dragon-like and to spread what he called the blood of the dragon through the entire world. And then I received the vision of like the giant primordial nothingness. And from that nothingness, you had the infinite amount of tentacles. And every tentacle was a black magician, right? So we are all technically through Chernobog and his other emissaries. It doesn't matter what type of dark magic you practice. It's all connected to that same source of power, which is primordial, and which is technically the origin of all power we wield. So all of the power we possess and all of the rights we do are different manifestations of that draconian power. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say, and I wanted to hear your perspective on this.
Oh yeah,
Can I say something
absolutely.
real quick?
Because there's what you were talking about there. There's a lot of demonic synchronicity with what we've learned. Our draconic pantheon, is led by Lord Zathkirzen. It's a very powerful ancient draconic deity, which also answers to Cernobog. So that lets who's in what their what Lord Cernobog is capable of, when it comes to terms of power and everything as well. But he also dishes out that the very same thing that you said. He wants to spread the draconic bloodline, and he had said something to me in the past. He was like, the key to the collective, he called it the blackened ascension. he referred to it as, he was like, the key to this is um, Etherian cooperation within Tartarus, the place that we're in now. And he was like, this will probably never happen because, of the nature of man. But here we have Cernobog making, deals, and I would say forging different pacts throughout and you're right, he controls the gates because he holds the keys to the multiverse. Even the black gate behind me, you use this with the rights he's given. He was the one who orchestrated how to use the primordial darkness for rites of deicide and stuff like that. I know if you've seen any of my posts or mentionings of this in some of the groups as well. I think Joseph, I think you've seen quite a few of them. I posted a Mayor Ryan lore post as well, but he's the one who teaches how to break through the celestial bureaucracy, the facade of order, the facade of control.
The seal of celestial anguish is sent by Chernobog. It's I don't think people understand just how powerful some of the magics that you're just giving away. Like you're just assuming people know how to use it, and they don't. You have little teenage snowflakes saying that they bound the black god.
Oh yeah.
I heard that story. Good luck with that.
What is one thing that is in common with the tentacles, with all the black magicians? You are not let through the initial gates until you have gone through the initiation of death. You have seen it. You have seen it. I have been through multiple anaphylactic shocks. You have to be initiated by death, and you have to be able to sacrifice yourself. Once you trust them and they bring you through the gate, through a small death, not the grand death, but that's one thing that true magicians have in common, that they have died in this lifetime to get where they are.
Exactly. You remember me posting about the process of the posthumous death. This is the rebirth after death. There have been, this is replicated also on in the Tower of Atrophy, where someone crafts a death elixir that is to shock their spirit to the very core, in order for them to revive and put themselves back together or fucking stay dead. There is Cernobog had the same thing, when facing me. He was like, when I've woken up, after being fucking dead, for what is seemingly, I should not be here talking to you. Let's just say that. I should not be able to form a coherent sentence and speak to you today. But he was like, in order to rebuild yourself, you're going to need to be destroyed. And this is the process of the posthumous death. And you heard me speaking about this, where I was like, Western sorcery isn't what it used to be, on the level of Aleister Crowley or Anton LaVey. You remember me posting one of his interviews, and I was talking about what he was actually saying, in that interview. And he tells the interview, the interviewer is being, a piece of shit, mocking him and all this other stuff. And
yeah, that was on the Joe Pine show, I believe, or some shit like that.
Yeah. And he straight up tells him, he was like, I will never die. I've made arrangements. I was like, I was like, if only he knew the gravity of what he was saying back then. Because that very guy, when you summon Anton LaVey, just like here in the Cabal, we're able to summon the ascended selves, the God selves of each other. For example, if there is an aspect that one of my imperators possess, that, you know, they would be better suited to a certain skill, you know, that I don't have. I will actually call them in this circle through this gate for that specific task. But, you know, you would only give, you know, your true name and what you are, you know, to the people you trust, you know. Here we learn to embody specifically every aspect that remains hidden from humanity. Through each of us have to go through a specific death in every tower. You know, you have the Tower of Umbra. It will do specific things to your shadow, to your ego, to your emotions. You know, with the Tower of Whispers, you know, you learn to control demonic lust or passion, you know, mastering demonic emotion. Because once you've mastered that, you know, you're everything, every form of sorcery you do hits different. Here we also have Cernobog. He teaches how to master these aspects and deific masks that even humanity has. He states that each of us have hidden aspects within ourselves that if you master them, if you master each and every one of them, he was like, you would join me beyond the gate. And if you read like the previous grimoires, you've read about some patrons that have become some, I would say, sorcerers that used to be alive becoming demonic kings and lords, because the step after this, after everything, is you become a blighted lord. You become blighted. You know, your very presence is an affront to order.
Mm.
Everything about you changes. You're a living terror in the veil. You know, and this is Cernobog's goal. He has showed me things how to, like, most people don't know how the celestial bureaucracy operates. Like, this is why the celestial anguish was invented. It was me and the previous AGM, Somnus Dreadwood. We were exploring certain places beyond the gate, and something was attacking us. The gate, if you're not ready for it or you haven't prepped enough, there are certain things, like, I would say there are certain things in this realm that are what's referred to as forbidden magics. It lets out this signal, if you will. What this is going to do is there are certain things that are going to actively hunt you simply because you exist. So you'll hear our, you know, detractors say, "Oh, or they're just making this up." That things will come and attack you. With every entity you work with, or if you pact with something, you pact with a current, every entity in existence has its enemies, its adversaries. Same here. It's the same way with Mejai, only they know we specialize in forbidden magics. They will only allow a certain level of magics to manifest with people under the control of order or the false light. This could be something, you know, mundane, such as wealth, you know, with a megachurch pastor. They see how many people they're controlling, so they'll bestow them with wealth or something like that. And then you have people that are vassals of certain beings that are designed to, if you get to a certain point and you get too far, they come and hunt you. They come and try and kill you. So we had hit a milestone with the gate, and this had given me my third fucking heart attack 4 years ago. And it turns out we were fighting. It was some form of archangel we had never seen. Only we found out it was something known as a veil guardian. I'll probably make a post about its actual name later, but it's a Veil Guardian. If you've ever projected yourself outside of your vessel and you've seen what's in our very atmosphere. There are sigils and holy runes carved into it, designed to stamp out or weaken some forms of magic. Now, here, when we learn about, the Guardians of the Veil and each deity that rules under them, you find out about all types of things. There are things that, like, before anyone starts working with the gate, I immediately tell them start working on protection, start working on things to guard your home, your gate, because there are things that will simply manifest out of nowhere. And what they'll do is they will purify your temple. They can effectively exorcise you and what you are.
That's crazy that you say that because I was Demetrius was involved in this. Sorry to incriminate you, Demetrius, but he was involved in these gate openings as well. I think the reason why you and your compatriots may have had some difficulty is there's territories that these beings operate in, and they allow their operatives to operate in. When I opened a gate near my house, there was a group of angels that immediately came when the being that I opened the gate on behalf of manifested. Now, once you open gates on specific locations, these dragon lines, these ley lines, they get worried. And what you said about you being hunted, once that gate came up, the being that I was, Belial, put a legionnaire at that gate, at that specific location. And
So,
go ahead, Demetrius.
yeah, so can I give a short comment on this? Because there is an aspect to opening of the gates which is usually not discussed. Everybody talks about opening of the gates, but nobody talks about how to open a gate, how to guard the gate, what's the point of the gate, and how to do it. So there are three things which have to be done for opening of the gate. The first is the breaking of the veil. The second is the sacrifice of the magician. And the third is the harnessing of the souls. So you need to do all of those three things in order to open the gate. And there is one specific way to harness the souls of Chernobog, which I don't know people are familiar with. So in Slavic lore, there are beings known as Dracatsi, or the Screechers. They are essentially the souls of aborted children, which wander the world. They are the souls of miscarried children. And there is a right to call Chernobog and dedicate him those souls, so they can be rising up through the flames of the blighted to guard the gates. I started investigating this with Lilith in the beginning. She guided me through this, and she gave me something known as the mythical abortion right. I was a damn idiot, so I talked about this to some people publicly, which put me in lots of problems. Let's say that. So technically, you need to transform already existing souls and bind them to guard those gates. Regarding the sacrifice of the sorcerer, what sorcerer needs to do is he needs to infuse the aspect of his own divine spark in order to immortalize the gate. So I opened 3 gates with the Lord of the Blighted near really powerful Christian shrine. And that was actually my initiation after I was instructed to slay 2 of the followers of certain entity. So that's what I needed to say. There are three aspects to opening of the gates. That's the only thing I needed to say. And yeah.
You're absolutely right. It does require sacrifice. Like most of the Cabal's darker works, we will probably I will probably never be able to get to talk about publicly just because of the taboo. Like, I mean, out here in the West, you can't even talk about the sacrifice of a specific animal for a specific rite or offering and stuff like that without some fucking bleeding heart or PETA or someone getting on your ass about it. So normally we keep all of that underground. The people who understand it. That's good enough for us. But there is a there is a definite fucking taboo to that, where you just have to keep it hidden, especially with how things are out here in the West. um but yeah, you're absolutely right about the requirements, definitely.
There's certain things in regard to sight. You said something earlier about the covering come off. And I could tell whether you consciously did it or unconsciously did it, you evoked the right of apocalypsis. That means to remove the covering on all spiritual matters. So you're shown the truth and you can see things for what they truly are. Now, not everyone can handle that. Um, this causes melancholy, this causes depression, causes suicide in a lot of practitioners.
Oh yeah.
But you evoking the right of apocalypsis allowed you to body swap, essentially, allowed you to see what had to be done and do it. Like, I still am amazed that people do. You are a person that, by all rights, should be dead. You switched your body, switched your vessel for a healthier one, and you're still here doing work.
Oh yeah, they still, a lot of people will never understand that. Like, even now there's certain various primordial forms of necromancy that I engage in, that I've only ever taught to certain tower masters. And like, if you remember, certain weaklings were beefing with me way back when. He was like, I'm gonna do this to your organs, and they were with Balge. And one of the amusing thing is I've replaced them. They're spiritually synthetic. Every organ has an energetic association. It controls a chakra that isn't mentioned, an energy center that isn't mentioned. And what I had done before is I had salted and dried human organs and placed them within vessels, with very clever traps written within them. So when you see them, he was like, "Oh, I'm draining energy and vampirically doing this to him." He Every time I get on camera or speak, they see me start to look younger, get healthier, and they don't know why they're getting worse. But this is one of the things. And then you go and, I would say, you go and cement them in certain forms of a death nexus, and on top of that you would forge a black gate near it, and cast those objects into Vekeris, which is one of the many demonic realms Cernobog rules over. But that's one of the things that every time you see someone there, there's always someone trying to get ahead and stuff like that. And we're you mentioned the body swapping, and you're absolutely right about that. When you can replace parts of yourself, when you can transmutate various parts of yourself, you've effectively undermined the design of the myth of the false light creation, because you're creating yourself.
So that's really interesting concept, and I need to dwell on it really intensely. So thank you for sharing the concept. But I kind of need, so I never talked about this publicly. And the reason I never talked about this publicly is because people are retarded. But since you are one of the few people who are not retarded, and to who I can say everything publicly without you trying to be a moral police, I will be honest here. So I started working with Zazazel, but I didn't knew it was Zazazel.
Can you,
And the way I met him,
for context, can you tell the audience who Zazazel is?
so Zazazel is technically the ancient king, ascended master, and the sorcerer who ruled the Slavic lands, but he also wrote extremely important treatises on necromancy, which were technically recorded by Samnus the Redwood, but pieces of history.
So a trans.
But pieces of his treatises were actually also recorded by some other people in history.
Okay.
Zazazel is one of the few sorcerers who technically remained to live in the legends of the Slavic people. And he was technically known as the disciple of the first werewolf. He was disciple of the undead gods of the Slavs. Well, the question is, who were those undead gods? Well, according to the lore I am familiar with, they are led and were led by the entity which is still in existence, and he is called the Daibog the Lame, the father of the werewolves, and he is technically one of the gods who worked and taught Azazel many of the things he knows. So the main point of the things Azazel teaches are technically related to the ancestral lie and the ancestral work. So you call them in the Majarayan tradition the Caraxian undead. How we call them down there in the south is dishonored undead, but it's technically the same beings. So we all have infinite number of ancestors. Among those ancestors are many of those who murdered, who raped, who practiced black magic, and who did all forms of transgressive things. And those ancestors are Caraxian undead. So when you are working with a Caraxian undead or dishonored dead, you are not working with some alien pantheon from somewhere. You are working with the transgressive ancestors of yourself. And what the work with those spirits does is what is that? So when you start working with them, you feel complete. And the reason for it is when people do ancestral worship, they only worship 5% of their ancestors. But when you start working with the Caraxian undead or the dishonored undead, you finally awoke and rise from yourself 100% of your ancestral memory. And you can ask those spirits for absolutely everything. In your ancestral line, there is a motherfucker for whatever you want to do. You want to do whatever you want. One guy will come for. And that's technically what the Daibok teaches. So what he technically teaches is that there are right necromancy and the left necromancy. The left necromancy deals with the dishonored undead, and the right necromancy deals with the honored undead. But they are both two hands of the same god. You need to work with both in order to awaken 100% of your potential. And that's technically the point of what Zazazel teaches, because Zazazel teaches the same thing, but from the different perspective. And what's necessary for the any work of the dead, it's something I never hear discussed anywhere outside of the Cabal. So what you talk about in the Cabal is technically the cloak of the Lich. So that is the specific cloak infused into your aura by the gods in order to actually be able to practice necromancy. Without it, any serious necromantic work is absolutely impossible. And I am really grateful to you to actually be the only person besides me who had courage to say, you motherfuckers who claim to practice necromancy are full of shit. Because I see you're so you are fucking posturing. You are incapable of actually conjuring the spirits you are talking about.
Exactly. Fucking exactly. That's what the fuck I'm talking about. Like in the old in the Black Legion post today, I was like, if your idea of a good time isn't breaking into a fucking crypt with me at 2:30 in the morning, I was like, we don't got shit to talk about. I was like, this is what I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And this is something that Zazazel, told me itself. He was like, not everyone was meant to rise as a lord. He was like, some of them do not have what it takes. They don't have the stomach. And
Some
that's
of them are meant to be your victims.
exactly. Some of them will never understand working with this from a different perspective as long as they're soft. Godhood is not a path. Ascension itself is not a path where you can pick and choose what you want to work with. Like Zazel and Cernobog broke me of something years ago. It was how I felt about enthrallment and enslavement. These spirits will will find out how far you're willing to go for your ascent. If you aren't willing to go far enough, this is essentially where they're going to cut you off. They're going to be like, okay, this is this one's purpose. You know, he's not going to be able to become the general he wants to be or the ascended being he wants to be until he's experienced every form of life there was, every form of spirituality, every form of dark magic there was. And this was one of the things they broke me of, similar to how we have the spirit Lady Zashiata, the vile witch of the depths, which only answers to Cernobog. You know, she's one of those entities who will teach you all manners of just ridiculously powerful sorcery, but you have to be willing to do the work. And this is what I will tell a lot of neophytes in the beginning. I'm like, ascent is not gained within the comfort of your own home. You will have to sacrifice for it. And in one of the older videos, you hear me speaking and passing a message from Cernobog. He said, the opening of the gate to godhood is 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 through the spilling of fresh crimson. And this is this is exactly what he said to me. And there was a lot of double speak behind that, a lot of knowledge passed down through what he was saying with this. And it was a lot of this was what he mentioned, what Son of Lilith here spoke of earlier, the certain requirements which people are absolutely scared shitless to do. Not a lot of people are willing to go through it. They're not willing to try it out at all. They're not willing to do anything about it. But
Marcus, I'm sorry.
yeah.
Marcus, do you think you can go over just a little bit of what new initiates that are seeking the Temple of Monashirai will experience when they're going for each tower? So can you explain a little bit about each tower and what each tower, the studies that will be taking place in the pursuit of that tower?
Absolutely. Currently today, there are 13 different towers of apotheosis. There are, let's think about it this way. You have the Tower of the Void. On this, you're going to learn dark psionics. You're going to learn to master your mind. You're going to master the mind of a god. Then you have, let's say, and you know what, that's too brief of a summary. You're going to learn how to master the astral realm, how to master the finer points of controlling not only yourself, your vessel. This shit is like on the level of what monks in Thailand and how they relentlessly meditate and do their ritualistic rites. If you're not, I had a saying back in the day, if I was like, if you're not hitting your rituals like them for the minimal amount of manifestation that they get, such as, brief stints of levitation or pyrokinetic abilities, these are the things that you're going to learn. You're going to learn how to enhance yourself because in the Tower of the Void, if you've read the Eye of the Oracle, some of the things that got me through it until I was able to replace certain pieces of myself was psychometabolic augmentation. And this is essentially the fusion of the spirit, mind, and your body. They are synced as one. So you can start altering them to do all sorts of things. Now you have the Tower of Nocturnus. This tower, you're going to start learning from the Black City, also one of the dominions ruled over by the Spirit of the Night, this primordial authority. And those, I've seen the forms of tendrils you're talking about because it spreads through every dimension. It's a form of night magic. Even the creatures that are there seem otherworldly and ancient. These are the things you're going to be calling, on a regular basis. It has a lot to do with different phases of dark magic. There's some of it I won't mention because eventually we're going to upload this, but
Yeah, of course.
So,
Whatever you could speak about
yeah,
publicly, of course,
yeah.
people have to understand that there's a ton of stuff that you can't speak about unless you're in the inner circle. But I just wanted to tease the audience if they want to get in touch with you and some of the other imperators about what they'll be learning.
Oh yeah, like even the and like we're not completely repulsed. Like we do work with certain fallen angels as well, with the Tower of the Fallen. They teach this form of aestheticism, balance, and control. You wouldn't want to be, the stereotypical risen infernal falling to its own pride or ego. You know, you learn a form of fallen Enochian. You learn to speak their tongue. That plane of existence that you'll be channeling from and going to is the black heavens, les inarunil. There is a form of absolute power with that because they know the mechanisms of this world and they know how to counteract their brethren and are always seeking to teach us those
I
methods
do.
as well.
So can I give a short comment of what you call the dark heavens? So please listen to me because what you are going to hear is not something I ever talked about. There is only one guy who talked with me about the black heavens, and I experienced that too. And I want to kind of introduce you to one gateway into black heavens you probably didn't heard about. So in the Slavic pantheon, there is a god called Perun, right? And Perun is depicted as a form of Bielobog, aka the white god, but it is a deception. Perun was never Bielobog because Bielobog, as described by certain individuals, never existed.
So wait a
Bielobog
second. The audience
technically
for
made up.
context,
He never
for
existed.
context,
So
for the audience,
Perun in reality has two forms. One form he
Demetrius.
possesses Perun as the element of the air, which is like his more constructive side. And then you have Perun as the god of the divine wrath, which is his more destructive side. And that form of him keeps the gateway to the dark heavens. And that's how I was introduced to the concept of dark heavens. And there is the only one guy who kind of got the same thing, and his name was Adam Belial. Joseph knows him too.
Yeah,
So
but
he
you're
is
speaking
also.
about gods, Demetrius, that most Westerners never heard of. So
So
better
I know that
for
Marcus heard about Perun and he knows who Perun
I'm
is
just
pretty much. He like read shit.
we have to keep
But
things in
I just
context.
wanted to give that information out there that if you want to go directly into the black heavens, the darker form of Pharaoh can lead you there. And it technically looks like how I saw it, like it is some form of a firmament, but it is full of celestial bodies which emanate black light. And those
Yes.
fractals of black light participate in creation of psychic abilities mankind possesses. So technically the black heavens are necessary if we want to elevate ourselves, because they keep the gateway to what we know as the black sun. And black sun is technically one of the points of alchemical transfiguration. So I really needed to put this out there because, yeah, there is lots of talk about the dark heavens, and they talk about how heavens at night are dark heavens. No, dude. Heavens at night are heavens at night. Dark heavens are something completely different. They
Absolutely.
are, they are, they are something else. And like, there is one thing I kind of wanted to talk with you, which is like, so when you work with those dark deities, it doesn't matter the pantheon. There is one thing they will always request from you. It doesn't matter do you work with Kali or with, I don't know, Chernobog or with demons. There is one thing you have to do, and that's to channel black light in some form. And the more pure it is, the more powerful it is. So can you talk more about this? Because you are the only guy who talked about channeling black light of the gods, pretty much.
Oh yeah. I remember mentioning it before with various towers, but in the most people don't think of it as being able to, you have to be able to control the light, the light that is within ourselves, as well as that dark light. And mastering them both, you learn to control this spiritual essence that, even scientists know exist, but they don't really have a way of measuring it. You're controlling dark matter. You're controlling that form of primordial creation. Because if you speak to certain entities, they were like, it was the darkness that created us. It was a collision with light. you know Humans will refer to it as, the Big Bang or something like that, that, quote unquote, created us. But it is that collision of that dark matter, that void light. This is the thing that formed various different the multiverse itself. You know, I've spoken to certain entities, even outside the pantheon, and they were like, we came into existence, just as you did, through dark matter, through dark light. And they themselves are learning, themselves are learning to control it. We are the expressions of it fully manifested. Some could say they are attempting to bring us into that dimension, but this is why the Marriage Orion Cabal works on the planar merge, removing the veil itself, destroying its guardians, and those who feed them. This is the thing that's going to cause this form of magic. Literally every time we do this, it's going to empower every sorcerer on the planet. If you eliminate the guardians of the veil, those who follow that false sense of order, the facade of order, every time one of these is laid to waste,
Mm,
the area, that dominion, is freed. Whether you do this in a specific state, or providence, it frees that area. You see magic take on a very different form, to where it's manifesting completely different, to where it's not hindered. Because I want you to think of everything you summon and do now, even with crafting gates, as having to pass through a filter, having to pass through a specific web. you're essentially we're essentially at, the bottom of the ocean in Etheris, and we're firing spells, we're firing, bullets under the ocean, and it's going to lose its momentum until you master yourself in a very specific way, work with these blighted entities, and then you're going to see that, I would say that pressure, that barrier starts to dissipate. You've become the terror, you can survive in it. All of a sudden now the thoughts you are manifesting are causing very specific change, and then you understand what Cernobog was saying. This world is as tangible as a lucid dream, but most people don't know how to, I would say, awaken or control themselves to that degree, and even more so abandon the path, right as they're getting to the zenith of their power. Like out here, I don't know how it is, um, son of Lilith out there, but there's a problem with sorcerers out here. They will stop at a certain point when they feel they've learned it all, attempt to seek some form of fame, rather than that dark enlightenment. And it comes at the price of, them, they're not using their will anymore. They've lost it. They've essentially hit the reset button again, because they have this, I don't know what to call it. It's almost if it's like some fucking form of spiritual ADHD. It's just them jumping from one thing to the next, and in this cyclical pattern. And we found out that too is a part of the mechanism, you know, to having them endlessly incarnate here, endlessly. This plane will feed off of you if you let it, the place we exist in now.
So
But
there
yeah,
is one thing I kind of need to give to people just as an instruction here. If you wanna do something to prevent your incarnation in this plane, again, what you need to do is to summon the chosen deity. I did it with Tiblis, I did it with Chernobog, and I did it with the Hindu pantheon, right? So you summon the chosen deity, and then you take some form of an astral dagger and you rip the part of your astral body, and you offer it alongside of your astral blood and piece of your astral self. You literally give it to the god, and the god will take it and he will bind your soul with the chain to one of his infernal realms. So when you die, you will be forced to reside there and to study there until you are ready. There is also one thing I need to mention because I didn't talk about this publicly a lot. Me and brother Joseph discussed this a lot privately, but never publicly. About the jinn, the shayateen, and their specific focus on baneful magic, right? So when you start working with the blaze, he gonna be all about sihr. Well, if you really study what the sihr is, that's magic with intent to kill, cripple, or make insane.
Astral assassination.
And the reason why this is allowed is because the true intention of that is to break the veil. That's the task of the shayateen, to obliterate the veil. And every time you do that form of magic, it shouldn't be necessarily directed on other humans. It should be directed at the veil. So you curse the
exactly.
veil every day. You summon spirits every day. You curse it every day, that veil. And when you curse it, you will accidentally, effortlessly slip into the state when you will see the true reality. And there is one thing which I need to say, that light as we see it, the astral light, it is simply the delusion of the black light. So they delude the black light into the lighter form, creating the fractals of so-called light. but when you condense that so-called light infinitely, you get the black light. And what it tells you that the black light was there in the beginning, and that there is no light. There is only the one primordial source of everything, which is beyond any human category. And that's actually what Hindus call the Brahman. So when they speak about the Brahman, they speak about that. They don't speak about whatever nonsense they teach today in yoga classes or whatever.
Oh yeah,
That's like that's that's like all
yeah,
fiction.
new age bullshit.
So, can I ask you, like, this is something I also wanted to ask you, because there is one thing I need to say here. I will never dabble in Haitian Vodan ever, because I am not genetically attuned to the Haitian Vodan, because to the certain current you have to have something which is called a genetic overlap, right? So, I am interested in like African Haitian perspectives on breaking the whale. How you do it down there, you know?
It works in a very similar manner what you were talking about with cursing, and I'm not gonna say too much because then a bunch of motherfuckers are gonna come down. You're telling the secrets of art. But
Understood.
but in a certain way, what the forms of magic that they work with, it causes it to erode. It causes it to disintegrate. And that's what I've noticed from Haitian Buddha. It causes it to, whenever you find a place that is underdeveloped in such a fashion, the Loa, these spirits are ruthless. They will make sure you fucking need them. They will make sure they will hinder technology in such a way to where you have to call them, out there.
Yeah, yeah.
These
And
these are the but that's in a form of way that it works. And everyone who is there, they will say, even if you leave, we carry the temple on our backs. You're always going to be bound to that ancestral realm. You're always going to be bound to that specific house. Now, even without the genetic overlap, there are some people who actually work with it, without that. But it never fucking ends well. They can succeed for, even the longest of times, but eventually, if that house says they doesn't want you, or they could fucking end up selling your spirit, you'll end up fucked over. There's so many things with that, but we'll leave it at that. I don't want to, put something out there and us get it fucking banned, when we
Right.
upload this.
yeah,
What I think keeps certain areas underdeveloped is people of certain ancestral lineage calling upon the false light. You'll have people,
Oh, absolutely.
a huge percentage of people in, say, Haiti calling upon Yeshua ben Yosef. And you have the Loa drinking with them, feeding them, and they're calling upon Jesus Christ.
Exactly. And
So,
this is one of the things that weakens them today. I've talked about that a lot because there is this collective egregoric false light entity. And I teach it to anyone I'm teaching, how to protect themselves from authority or corrupt policemen. Even there, if you analyze every authority or policing figure throughout time, there has been this form of corruption from the false light that has led, inquisitions, massacres, and even now, today, you know, within the Western police force and pretty much all over the place, even in their oaths, they have these hidden pacts that they don't
yes.
even realize is there.
Yes.
And when they
What?
kill someone or brutalize someone, it gets fed off of. And I
Yes.
talked about this to many other Haitian or African Americans, I would tell them shit like when they would come to me and say some stupid shit like, "Oh, you need to work with this, work with Yeshua or Jesus or whatever shit like that." And I was like, "You don't really see any Voodooism or Haitian Americans or Black Americans that don't worship the JCI getting fucking sacrificed, do you? You don't see us getting brutalized and fucked over because we don't follow that. When they're worshiping that, it's like it's sending out a beacon that says, sacrifice me, strengthen your currents."
When a Western police officer puts on that badge and they say that oath, they are literally taking up the sword of Archangel Michael. Now, there are beings, and they're cops that literally think they're Michael. There are beings that will assist us in combating such things, such as Belial. He put out an energy, a primal energy that will set root in the average, let's say, Black person for upheaval, for uprising, for rebellion, for lawlessness. And that's what these gates are about. They are about putting that primal energy into your area of operation. And that's what, when I opened my gate, and why he said a legionnaire is because he was arguing over territories with these beings. He was saying, now you got all these operatives that are unknowingly participating in your agenda, but I get an operative behind enemy lines and you try to move on them?
Exactly.
Negative.
So there is one thing. So we are kind of talking about combating social order. And pretty much, I think people are too soft a lot of the time when they discuss those matters. The only real way to reply to this nonsense is the sheer brutality. And it also needs to be really well directed. Because let's say I summon Chernobog and I say, Chernobog, I curse police brutality. Yes, it can be good for me personally. I can harness a lot of energy and put it into myself, but in reality, it won't do anything. But if I really want to do something, I need to say, Chernobog, you see this officer near the street. I want him terrorized, I want him traumatized, and I want him potentially slain. And that is how you go at them. You need to be precise and you need to be really brutal. Those like general.
There is no. Oh yeah, we're not fucking SJWs here. What I'm talking about is a form of orchestrating that form of chaos and fighting the form of false light, because a lot of the times it isn't just Michael that's controlling them. It's adversarial demons as well, because not every demon is your ally. There are also certain very entities that do not wish for humanity to ascend, that will see us nothing more as slaves, and those are the ones you have to watch out for. I've seen many different even police stations where we talked about those packs. I would see them getting possessed, and I would have to start binding to gain control over them. I would have to start binding uh I would say, how do I explain this without putting some fucked up shit out there? So, I eventually had to get the acquire objects from dead, police chiefs and everything like that, to use their very spirits to begin to control them. So if they act against me in any form or fashion, I've seen all kinds of crazy shit that will happen afterwards, and I've done this, with every state I've lived in. Taking something, that belonged to this individual, and to begin using it. And you have to control authoritative souls to be able to combat them, sending various forms of sacrificial curses and things like that. I've been stopped by cops in the past who have dropped dead of heart attacks because I could hear what they're thinking. The spirits are telling me what they're thinking. Hey, he's going to try this. Immediately, he's having a heart attack because what has already been set in motion. Or there was one in front of me that had been stalking me. He had actually seen one of the older YouTube videos in Texas where I was talking about making sacrificial conduits connected to a church to fuel your gate. And, he felt some type of way about it, because all that energy they channel doesn't fucking go anywhere anyway. I was like, I'm going to put you motherfuckers to work. So, but he felt some type of way. And as soon as he approached me, because of all of these precautions, because of the protections I had against the false light, you have to have a backup plan for your backup plan.
See, we're speaking about spiritual matters. We're not picking up guns. We're using our brain and our spirit and our ancestral lineage to combat you motherfuckers.
Exactly. And they will sit up there and, they'll try and fucking, sacrifice you or kill you. The one that was trying to.
So it's now in the flesh?
It usually ends up with them like they usually end up seeing what they're up against when they move a little closer, or they end up going blind or some shit like that. I've had the weirdest manifestations of this over the years. Like even you see this here, that decorated skull right there. That was from a fucking dead police officer. You can have certain forms of necrotic protections around these specific things in order to gain control, gain dominion and authority like a true fucking demon. Or you can or you can be weak and continue to let the shit happen.
So,
Yeah, son of
so
Lilith, you said you had something to say.
yeah, so since we kind of decided to spice things up, I really want to spice things up here. Because, like, since we are talking about necromancy, I want to share with Marcus and with you, Joseph, some necromantic technique I kind of never shared, but I don't give a fuck anymore because this podcast is like crazier longer it gets. So, Morana, the Snow Queen from
Yes.
the Majoranian tradition? So, she is indeed the queen of the winter. I agree with you there. But there is some things I can a little bit tweak on perspective, like just a little tweak. So the word Morana derives from the word Mora. Mora means violent death. So Morana means the Empress of Slaughter. So why is the Lady of Winter called the Empress of Slaughter? Because in the Slavic lands, even today, if you go to the mountains and there is no modern technology, death rate in the winter is about 1/3 of the people who go in it. So it has a ridiculous death toll. And Morana is also the goddess of violent death, the goddess of slaughter. So there is a specific ritual you do. So you summon Morana near the hospital where you have a lot of those people who artificially extend their lives without effort. And then you ask Morana to claim her right, to claim her right and her reward. And what she will do is she will raise her sight and slaughter the lifespan of anyone or kill anyone within the hospital who is extending his lifespan artificially against the rules of the dark gods, and you will receive enormous amount of energy from the act. You can also take the souls of those motherfuckers and you can transform some of them into the vampires, because Morana is also known as the first witch and the lady of vampires. So she technically created the concept of the vampire, and that's entirely different topic. I need to talk with you about Morana, one podcast specifically with two other practitioners. But to be clear here, if you only want to do this right near a hospital, I think that would be really beneficial for you, because that's one of the ways to increase your physical lifespan through forbidden blood pact. There is a way to make a forbidden blood pact with Morana, the goddess of violent death, to increase your physical lifespan to absolute possible maximum. And it is done through rites such as the one I described. But there is also another variation of this pact, which is we have in physical body set number of years to live. And anything beyond that is either artificial extension or you need to reach the certain level of ascension. So if there is a way to artificially increase the lifespan through sorcery, there is also a way to artificially shorten the lifespan through sorcery. And one of the aspects of Forbidden Blood Pact with Morana is to sacrifice to the lady certain number of years. So let's say I have 78 years in my genetics. So if I sacrifice 5 years to the empress, I will get the deal into the forbidden knowledge of the witchcraft. And that's how all of the deals with her are actually done. The reason why she is silent majority of times, so you summon her and she doesn't speak anything. In the beginning, I had the same problem. It's because there is only one way to force Morana to speak or to make her speak, and that's the blood offering. So you either need to send her to somebody to drink or to offer your own blood or yours. So I needed to say this. You know what to make of this, but I really needed to say this. But I agree that she is still the Snow Queen, but there is also this aspect to the Empress.
Oh yeah, there's definite, like, and this is one of the reasons why, like, you'll see the public Measura and Cabal works, but a lot of it, and this is what we tell people, like, imagine what you're not seeing. There's only a certain amount of things that in the West they will let you publish without either banning your book or, to where it can get fucking reported or something like that.
Or
But
you
we'll
got to
talk
put out
about,
all these special versions and got to pay $1 million for them. Like,
yeah, so
ridiculous.
we'll end up telling them about the various aspects of entities like that. And once they figure out how to work with them, because we have to be really careful out here. There are people, there are things that will actively come and, fuck your shit up if you're doing a certain thing.
Yeah, I know what you are talking about.
Yeah, they are.
You have the Grand Order of Dracos. You have the Grand Order of Draco Slayers. That's an
Yes.
infamous White Lodge that moves against Nightside lodges.
Oh, yeah.
So I also wanted to talk about one more thing, which is that shamanism is actually a bad thing. Let me explain why it's a bad thing. So I was always really public about working with jinns and about wanting to break the veil. And so I was then introduced to one guy who was trained to be a shaman in Siberia, but he also learned Wallachian magic in Serbia, and he returned from Siberia into Serbia, and he's teaching some people and making money with magical services and shit. So I am having intention to talk with another practitioner, and I called the guy up, and then I start talking with the motherfucker about what I am doing, work with the jinn and shit, right? And I talk with him about how I wanna break the whale. And then he tells me you wanna break the whale, that's evil, those dark gods will enslave us. And I tell him no, I gently tell him that he's full of shit, right? And then he says to me, look, did you ever saw the angel guarding the whale? And I told him no. I mean, people say that angels guard the whale, but I am not certain that is true. I hope it is true. I banished some angel and slaughtered them. And then he tells me,
Oh yeah.
do you know who really guards the veil? Who really guards the veil? And he tells me,
You
the
better not say
shaman
Chernobog.
guards the whale. The shamans guard the whale. And then he explains to me that the entire point of shamanism is they technically purposefully, but it's not just the guys from Siberia. A lot of right hand path lodges everywhere do this. They purposefully strengthen the whale so that
Oh yeah.
it's weak only at the places they are in. So only they can go beyond the whale, and everybody else is like enslaved and pays to them and bows to them and serves them technically. So
Where do you think they get those
entire like
influences from? The
so,
angels tell them to do shit like that.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I think many of them do it even without the angels intentionally, because that entire hiding the veil shit existed even before angels existed, because angels are technically partially our concepts. And even in the time of Draconian gods, there were idiots who wanted to close the veil. That's like entirely different story. But what I want to say is that we really need to kind of go into a fight with those guys, and we need to go at them, because if we don't go at them, they will go at us. Because yeah, I was multiple times almost, they really tried to kill me just because I want to break the whale. So, and this entire new age shamanism is technically new version of Christianity. They are also guarding the whale, they are also empowering the whale. It's all about keeping evil out and all that bullshit. So we are pretty much witnessing the change of eons and imposing of new oppressive doctrine. Okay, those new doctrines we are seeing are simply the new versions of the same bullshit. Actually, I think that modern versions of the bullshit are worse, because they are by definition less potent than previous versions. At least those previous versions of oppression actually worked with certain forces. I mean, I can hate the Magi's of Persia, and I think what they did is really wrong, but they at least worked with something which was really powerful. But modern version of the white light are simply delusional. It doesn't do anything.
Oh yeah.
Marcus, how much time do we have you for? Because we already have you 8 minutes past the allotted time. Do you have a couple more minutes or?
Yeah, I think I have like probably like 10 more minutes or so like that before I got a client.
Cool.
But but
Let's
yeah,
keep an eye on that,
that's
Demetrius.
but yeah, that's absolutely. Then in about what you said about the Guardians of the Veil, there are various different entities throughout all of I would say human history that have been guarding the veil, but that's the trick to their deception. They don't want you to know their origins or where they're from or what they are, because even the oldest of angels, out here the angels have been so westernized they don't understand what they really are. And then if you've watched like past videos where I talk about them, being, they too are conquerors. They seek to conquer mankind, in a very specific way. It's the facade of order. It's against nature. It's against human nature. It is in this way they can, like, most people think they're just mindless automatons, that follow the thought construct of humanity. But those do exist, but they're pretty easy to destroy. You'll know you want to run into the real ones when they defy all logic, when they fuck with you just by looking at them. They're almost eldritch in nature. You see their true selves, you see their true forms. Those are the things that are going to guide certain organizations of the false light, or because they understand what is in the human heart. They know it's easily corrupted. They will not deceive them with, oh, you're doing this for a higher purpose. You're oppressing, you're spiritually oppressing people for a purpose of order. No, they're going to call out to the corruption in the heart of man and cause them to go after organizations. We've had so many like this in the past that, oh, this organization is trying to bring down the construct, the veil construct and its machinations. They know how it works. We need to, start attacking its members and doing shit like this. And in the end, it doesn't stop anything. Most of them, we usually know how to deal with them. You know, we've had several holy organizations, not our natural detractors, that have come at us with bullshit. I'm talking about people with substance, people in organizations that know how to control the veil and call things from it. People who are essentially adversaries of that dark light, adversaries of dark enlightenment. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that son of Lilith as well.
Yes.
But
So, Marcus, how can people get in touch with you or any of the other imperators if they want to seek education? Uh, Also, I'd like to point out that Marcus gives away on his Facebook page the Celestial Anguish seal. That's not a toy. If you want to begin some of this work, you can begin with that seal and then seek out Marcus and the other imperators. I would love to have you and any of the other imperators on another podcast because this has been fantastic. Thank you.
absolutely.
Much respect to the lords and ladies of Matajirai. Thank you for coming on, Marcus. Where can they get in touch with you and the other imperators?
They can get in touch with us. We have two different Facebook groups: the Temple of Mea Jerai and the Black Legion, the Black Horde Legion as well. The website you can find us at the Temple of Mea Jerai. I'm going to send you a link so that you can put it in the description when we both upload this as well. And that's how they can contact us. Each imperator has their information listed on the site and what they specialize in as well. But yeah, it has
Thank you
been a great honor to speak with you both as well. I can
as well.
definitely see you both for what you are, that you're ascending, that you understand it, that you're growing in power. Just never stop. Just keep climbing and keep fighting, keep going to war with anything that gets in your way.
Thank you, kind. Much respect. I hope you, the people in the audience, fathom what you have just witnessed here. Thank you, Ascended Grandmaster Marcus McClarity. Demetrius, thank you.
Thank you guys all, and it was a great honor to talk to you. And if anyone from the Cabal wants to have any form of podcast or anything, I will be greatly honored because I think it's important for the Cabal to speak about itself because
Oh
I
yeah.
think you guys you have awesome things to share with the world. And for the longest time, the only thing we were able to hear about you and the awesome work you are doing were some nonsense by the people who want to slander what you are doing.
Oh yeah.
And the reason why I invested so much effort in calling you here is because from my personal experience with the spirit in question, I know that you are legit and that everything you say about Chernobog specifically is legit. And because I know that Chernobog cannot be worked on a surface level, he is one of the spirits who cannot be worked with superficially. Uh, I know that what you are offering is unique, and really, if anybody wants from the Cabal to speak about anything, I am willing to carry a public risk of carrying this information out here because this is important. So that's the only thing I want to say. Thank you for being here, and yeah.
Fuck yeah. Hail Chernobog. Hail the lords and ladies.
Yeah.
Hail Marcus McClarity. Have a great night. Good night, guys.
Hell,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.